The lake was silent, still enough to reflect the clouds drifting lazily above. Still, the peace in the air didn't match the tension quietly forming around its edge. A black man stood at the water's rim, casting his line with the calm confidence of someone who belonged there. Yet every glance he received said otherwise. Homeowners paused mid-stride, eyebrows raised, whispering to one another as though witnessing a disturbance rather than a harmless pastime. Among them, one woman stepped forward with the certainty of someone who believed she was the neighborhood's guardian. Her suspicion grew with every breath she took, tightening like a fist around the moment. She didn't know it yet, but this afternoon would flip her world upside down. Watch until the end. Watch until the end. Wait a second. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. Before any of this began, Marcus Bennett had built a life centered on quiet progress and unwavering discipline. Growing up, he was taught to move with intention, to let his work speak louder than frustration ever could. That mindset carried him, from a childhood filled with financial struggle, to a successful adulthood grounded in investment, land ownership, and a deep appreciation for the peaceful moments he rarely allowed himself to enjoy. Years earlier, he came across a neglected plot of land on the outskirts of a growing suburban community, an area no one seemed to care for, mainly because it required significant restoration. But Marcus saw potential in the untouched lake, the aging dock, and the patch of forest hugging the shoreline. He worked methodically, purchasing the property, clearing debris, rejuvenating the water, and restoring the land piece by piece. Over time, the lake became a sanctuary, a private, beautiful space he owned outright. As the surrounding neighborhoods grew, a homeowners association took shape around the area, filled with residents who assumed, without verifying, that the shimmering lake belonged to them. Marcus didn't bother correcting anyone. He preferred privacy over attention. His visits were sporadic, usually on days when he needed to breathe away the pressure of leading teams and managing investments. But the HOA's culture shifted over the years. A few outspoken residents began monitoring every unfamiliar face, convinced they were maintaining safety when, in reality, they were projecting their own biases into ordinary situations. And on that fateful afternoon, those biases would collide directly with Marcus's quiet routine. The day began with warmth in the air and a light breeze fluttering through the trees, a perfect environment for Marcus to reset his mind. He drove to his lake, parking a short distance away, stepping into the familiar crunch of gravel under his boots. The moment he reached the water's edge, he felt the subtle relief that always came with it. Like an exhale he had been holding for too long, but almost immediately, something felt off. A cluster of homeowners stood near the walking path, glancing in his direction with the kind of synchronized suspicion that needed no words. A man paused mid-jog, eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe. A couple walking their dog pulled the leash, tighter, guiding the animal away as though avoiding contamination. Whispers followed, tightening the atmosphere rather than breaking it. Marcus steadied his breathing. He had lived long enough to recognize when assumptions were forming around him like invisible walls. Still, he cast his fishing line, letting it fall gracefully onto the lake's surface. He didn't notice Karen at first. She approached with a brisk, authoritative stride, her expression hardening with each step. She was known around the neighborhood as someone who monitored everything. Lawn heights, mailbox colors, even the volume of laughter from backyard gatherings. She positioned herself near the edge of the trail, arms locked tightly across her chest, staring as if she were evaluating a threat. Minutes passed. Her discomfort escalated. Her imagination filled the blanks with fears she had invented. Residents nearby watched, waiting for something, anything, to justify their unease. Marcus remained, focused on the water, but Karen interpreted his calmness as defiance. That was all the justification she needed. With a dramatic flourish, she retrieved her phone. Her voice rose with urgency, hand gestures exaggerating every false assumption. A crowd began to form. Neighbors, drawn to the possibility of confrontation, some eager to witness chaos, others silently complicit through inaction. Marcus heard snippets of the escalating commotion behind him. The word trespassing floated through the air. His heart tightened. He knew where this was heading. As Karen continued her performance, the residents watched with anticipation, unaware that every judgment they had formed was built on a foundation of ignorance. They didn't know who Marcus was. They didn't know what the lake represented. They didn't see the truth creeping toward them like a tide they couldn't stop, and the police were already on their way. The rising wail of police sirens cut through the neighborhood like a blade slicing through fabric. Birds scattered from nearby branches. Children playing in their yards froze mid-movement, sensing the tension even if they didn't fully understand it. The community seemed to inhale as one. Marcus felt the weight of the moment press heavily against his chest. The peaceful retreat he had built, the sanctuary he cherished, had transformed into a stage where assumptions now threatened to become something far more dangerous. Officers stepped out of their vehicles with a rigid posture, eyes scanning Marcus with alert caution. Karen hovered nearby, energized by the presence of authority she believed would validate her fears. Neighbors formed a half-circle behind her, their breath held in anticipation of a confrontation they felt justified. Marcus kept his posture controlled, his movements slow, aware of the fragility of situations like these. The officers approached with their hands near their equipment, prepared for escalation despite the absence of any wrongdoing. The air crackled with tension. A single misinterpreted gesture could have shifted everything toward irreversible tragedy. But, then in the thick of that pressure, Marcus reached calmly for his bag. Every muscle in the crowd seemed to tense. Still, he moved deliberately, producing a folder he always carried when visiting the property. It contained legal documentation, ownership deeds, boundary maps, permits, all bearing his name. He extended the documents toward the officers with steady hands. Their expressions shifted as they scanned the papers. Confusion crept in first, then realization. The transformation was unmistakable. Their rigid cautions softened into embarrassed understanding. They glanced at the lake, at the surrounding land, then back at Marcus. He didn't merely belong there. He owned every inch of it. Karen's posture collapsed. What had been self-righteous certainty dissolved into stunned disbelief. Her lips parted in shock, but no excuses came. The crowd rippled with discomfort, eyes darting away, each person suddenly aware of the ugliness they had just participated in. The truth had landed with the force of a hammer, and it was undeniable. When the officers apologized, a quiet, stiff gesture born of embarrassment rather than genuine remorse, the neighborhood stood in awkward silence. Karen stepped backward, emotionally disarmed, her earlier bravado replaced with the sinking heaviness of accountability she had never expected to face. The residents who had gathered one by one retreated, their steps weighed down by the uncomfortable truth they had witnessed. Marcus didn't linger in the moment. He didn't argue, accuse, or demand. Instead, he returned his documents to the folder with the same calmness he had carried throughout the ordeal. That calmness wasn't weakness. It was resilience forged over years of navigating similar moments, in various forms. He began packing his fishing gear. His movements were quiet, steady, and dignified. The lake around him seemed to reclaim its stillness, as if mirroring his spirit. The officers returned to their vehicles. Karen remained rooted, in place, grappling with the consequences of her assumptions. Marcus walked toward his car without looking back. The community around him now understood something they hadn't before. That ownership didn't shield him from prejudice, success didn't protect him from suspicion, and calmness didn't erase the threat he felt when confronted for simply existing in a space he rightfully controlled. As he drove away, the neighborhood remained unsettled. Residents would spend days replaying the scene, realizing how quickly they believed the worst of him, how willingly they fueled an accusation without truth, and how easily racial bias disguised itself as concern. For Marcus, it became another reminder of the reality many faced, that someone else's assumptions could still overshadow dignity, achievement, and legality. And for viewers, the story lingered like an echo, one asking a painful but necessary, Question: how many more times will prejudice repeat itself before people finally learn to see the truth? Where are you watching from? Take care.